Kyle Bradford from Chaparral Motorsports here at PRP today. We're going to be looking at side-by-side seats, harnesses, door bags, and all kinds of stuff like that. So let's get inside. So PRP's been in business for just over 20 years now. We're going to come in and meet Jason, and Jason's going to give us a walk around, give us some company culture, and then show us how these products are made. Hey, Jason, how you doing, man?
Hey, Kyle, how's it going, man?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having us here today.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, man. We're excited to have you guys here. Check out the new place.
So I was telling the viewers that you guys have been in business just over 20 years,
Yep.
and you guys do all kinds of stuff for the side-by-side market. We do seats and harnesses and door bags and things of that nature. What was the product that really put you guys on the map?
I would say it was the seats initially. When the UTVs first started becoming popular, we started doing seats, and nobody else was really doing it. So that really got us into that market. Then we were the first seat to be factory installed by Polaris in one of their special UTVs. And so that really gave us opened the door to tons of different dealerships to be able to call them up and tell them about what we have. Most recently, it's been the door bags. We were the first one to create a door bag for that stock door on the RZR 1000 body style. And man, that just blew up. That went really big. It was such one of those things where you don't really know you need it until you ride in the RZR and you start whacking your knee against it. So people started seeing that need, and it really just blew up and got real big for us.
Sounds good. So let's step right over here real quick. You can see a couple of these door bags up here on the walls. Now, when it comes to those bags, you have storage and you have like a knee protector, if you will, to keep your knee from knocking into the door. What are some of the other features of those bags?
Yeah, well, it's made with all marine grade vinyls, so it can sit out in the sun, it can get wet, all that kind of stuff, and it's not going to fade quickly, and it's not going to get all moldy and musty if it gets wet after a while. Yeah, so you don't want that. It's great storage, again, really convenient right next to you while you're riding, and it's got a little pouch inside that's a cell phone pocket as well, so your phone's not rattling around with everything else that might be in that bag. And then it installs super easy. It just goes right on the door, right where if you hold it up to the door, you'll see where the bolt holes are, and you just back those stock bolts out and bolt the bag right on. So real easy to use. Perfect.
Now, as far as the features that people can get or the different ways that they can order it, I see some with piping, some without piping, some colored, some non-colored. What are we looking at there?
Well, all of our UTV bags, the RZR bags, come in 6 different colors for the piping. So that way you can buy all kinds of different bags and it all match. So we got blue, red, orange, that lime squeeze color that's been kind of popular, and white and black, of course, is the biggest one.
Funny, everybody wants colors, but everyone buys black.
Yeah, everybody wants to see the selection, but then they just get black because they're kind of nervous about maybe showing off too much. But no, we sell a ton. Blue, black, and red are kind of the biggest sellers. And again, we have the whole suite of products for the RZRs and other UTVs too with matching colors. So you can get that whole cool interior look to your vehicle, even match your seats if you want to.
Awesome. Now, before we jump over to harnesses, which is the next big topic we want to talk about, let's talk about bags just a little bit more. So as far as those bags go, what type of styles or different places or positions do you have bags for?
So for the RZR, which is our most extensive line of bags for UTVs, we have door bags front and rear. We have a center bag, which sits in between the seats, either, again, front or rear. We have an overhead bag for the stock cage, which is really nice and big, tons of storage there, and doesn't sag, doesn't start getting in your face or anything like that. And then we have a couple bags that hang either behind the front seats if you have a 4-seater, or in the bed. It's a single bag and a double bag. So quite a lot of storage, because we know those UTVs, they have the glove box and a bed, but really not much to really store stuff in. So we created a whole bunch of products just to give you all kinds of storage, all kinds of options just to put your stuff up and put it up and get it out of the way.
Perfect. So if you need storage for your ATV or UTV, PRP has got the solution for you. Now you find yourselves dropped down in front of the harness wall. Now, harnesses can be a little bit confusing to some people. Yep. If you were going to give us a harness 101 right now, what would that look like?
We actually tell a lot of people, they ask us, should I get seats or harnesses first? And man, we made our name on seats, of course, but if you really want to be safe, you got to get away from those stock harnesses in a UTV. They're great if you're just kind of tooling around or going on some trails, but if you really want to get on out in the desert or in the dunes, you want to have a good set of 4 or 5 point harnesses. So yeah, our difference in harnesses is 4 or 5 points. We have a lot of different options. There's different attachment options. We have the easy adjusters on the shoulders, which make it real easy to loosen up or tighten your shoulder belts. So that way, when you're stopped talking with your friends, you can kind of loosen them up, you can move around, and then you can really hammer down and get on the trails again.
That's very interesting. So the last car I was in that had a 5-point harness, they were like adjusters that you had to literally feed the loop through and pull it down. And once you got it set, it was set. So getting into them was kind of tough, and then getting out was kind of tough. But when you're in it, it was perfect and set at the right spot. So you're saying these have quick releases. You just flip up, you can move around. That's really nice.
Yeah. So when you stop, or again, you're just hanging out with your friends, or you kind of stop and you're waiting a little bit to get back on the trail. The easy adjusters, you just pull right up. Pull up on the adjuster, and pull down on the strap, and it comes right up and loosens right up, and you can reach your glove box, you can reach around the cab, anything you need to do.
So when it comes to harnesses, we have 2-inch webbing, we've got 3-inch webbing. What would you say as far as the proper thickness of webbing for the type of driving that these guys are doing?
Really, the thickness of the webbing is secondary. We've had all the harnesses tested. Now, while there's different certifications, you've heard of FIA, SFI is our certification for our harnesses. All of them have actually been tested to the same tolerances. So even our 2-inch, our 3-inch, they all get tested. I think it was 6,000 pounds where some of them finally started breaking, and 6,000 pounds is way more than what you need. So either one is going to be real safe. It's really about the style of harness you want to get to where it's like our 4.2 and our 4.3 is sewn together at the lap. And then the 5 points, the 5.3, the 5.3 by 2, it's that traditional latch and link that all comes apart. Okay. So a little more difficult sometimes for people to put together. That's why we have the 4 points. It's real easy to latch together. You just want to make sure that the lap belt is really sitting low and stays low, because it can have a tendency to ride up without a 5th point. So that's the only thing we recommend.
Now, as far as the harnesses that you guys sell, what harnesses do you personally use?
I like the 5.3 by 2 actually. It's got a little bit thinner shoulder strap, and then it's got the 3-inch lap belt, which kind of feels nice and snug and secure. And then that 2-inch shoulder strap, it doesn't rub your neck as much. Even with our nice soft pads, if you have a nice big 3-inch harness, it can start wearing after a long ride, where the 2-inch is a little thinner and it feels more comfortable.
Now, as far as the naming convention of the harnesses themselves, we have a 5.3, 5.2, all kinds of different numbers, almost like the Harley alphabet soup. So for the end user, what is the simple breakdown of those numbers?
So the basic breakdown of the naming convention is that the first number refers to the number of attachments you have. Okay. So you have 4-point or 5-point. We even have a 6-point belt. And then the second number refers to the width of those attachments. So a 4.2 is a 4-point attachment and 2-inch belt. 5.3 is a 5-point attachment, 3-inch belt. And then the one that I like, I was saying, is a 5.3 by 2, and that's a 3-inch lap and a 2-inch shoulder 5-point belt. So just kind of a quick number, breakdown like that. We try to keep it straightforward, but I know sometimes it does confuse people.
Well, it's confusing until you hear what those numbers are, and they're like, oh, it makes total sense. I should have got that on my own.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, thanks for that understanding of those numbers there.
Sure.
Now, can you show us a couple examples of what that 4-point and that 5-point harness look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So right here behind us, we have the 4-point belts. And this is actually our most popular belt as far as dollar volume sales, everything. It flies off the shelves. It's the 4-point here is, again, the 4 attachments. This happens to be sewn together at the lap, which is a good differentiator. The other types we'll look at in a second all comes apart, which is safer and, say, a rollover for racing. This has the automotive style latch, so it's the same kind of latch they use in the stock UTVs. It holds up with dust and dirt and everything, and it's real solid, real reliable latch there. And just like all of our harnesses, we have all black hardware. Here's those easy adjusters we were talking about. But the main thing, again, is that 4-point is sewn together at the lap, and it just makes easy to clip in, clip out.
So sewn together at the lap, and we have an automotive style buckle.
Yep.
So moving down the wall here, we're looking at a 5-point harness. Jason, can you please give us the anatomy here of the 5-point harness?
Absolutely. So the 5-point harness is, the main thing is that it has this anti-submarine strap. And what this does is keep that lap belt down and keep the harness in place for if you, say, go end over end, you're not going to slide out underneath the lap belt. So it's a real big safety feature on there. The other thing is all of the attachments go into this one buckle here. And again, in case of a rollover, in case of an accident, you can just release the latch here. Everything comes apart. It's real easy to get out. So we really recommend if you're going to be hammering down on the gas, if you're really going to be flying through the dunes or the desert, get a 5-point, get something that's a little more complete, and will keep you in the vehicle a little bit better.
Now, as far as the 5-point harness goes, it's a little bit different than the type of attachment that most people are used to. Like you said, the automotive type buckle is what people are used to in their cars. For somebody who's never used this type of harness, what kind of suggestions or helpful tips do you have for them?
It's actually, it does get difficult. Some people are kind of confused by it, but the real easiest way is it's called a latch and link, and you take the little tab and you just pile everything on that tab and then slide it in and latch it over.
Okay.
So it's not as, once you kind of understand how it all goes together, it's not as hard as some people think. It just looks, there's a lot of pieces when they first get into the vehicle. So sometimes that can be confusing. But yeah, you just slide everything onto the one tab, and then you put it in the latch and lock it down.
Perfect. So here we are sitting inside a car with a 4-point harness installed. We're now going to have Jason walk us through the proper procedure for getting buckled up.
So the most important part is to keep that lap belt in the right spot. So what you want to do is you buckle up the lap belt, so whether you have the auto style like this or the other one, and tighten it down really tight. I almost suggest like uncomfortably tight in a way, just so you know you're nice and snug in there.
Okay.
Once that's nice and tight, then you can throw on the shoulders and tighten those down. And that holds your shoulders in, and then you can use the sternum strap there just to keep those shoulder straps in a kind of comfortable position. If it doesn't quite work for you, this is completely removable and you don't need it. But that'll keep you in there snug and safe for your journey.
Now, one thing we talked about earlier was the quick release. What do you call these? The
Easy adjusters.
Easy adjusters. The easy adjusters here on the harness. I was messing around with this just a minute ago. It's pretty phenomenal. Check it out. So now I can move around inside the car.
Yep. You can get out the door and kind of check out your line if you're doing a little rock crawling or something, and really see where you're going.
Really easy to secure them back down, and then if I want to move again, just have to open them up. Really cool.
Yep.
Well, now that we talked about the ancillary products that PRP makes, let's talk about the one product that got you guys into business to begin with. Now, that's a kind of a fun little story. So PRP was developed off of a couple seats being made to begin with, those seats being sold, providing income in order to make more seats and sell more seats. So tell us a little bit about that story, if you would.
Yeah, it's really one of your classic garage business stories. The owner, Aaron, was building a buggy, and he was trying to get seats from a local off-road shop, and they just basically said, yeah, you'll get them when you get them. And he wasn't happy with that. He wanted to get something a little bit quicker. He wanted to get out in the desert, start riding. I think it was just a few weeks away from sand season or something like that. So he decided to find some seats, the old seats his buddy had. He broke them down, figured out how to make them, started building his own seats.
Pretty cool. So now let's step on over here to the seat lineup. Now, when it comes to the number of seats you guys have, it's pretty staggering. We got price points starting at $329 for this guy, going on up over $1,000. So as far as the seats go, how many different seats are we looking at?
So we have 6 different base models, and the main difference between them is kind of the size and the style of the containment on them. I mean, we can make them all for almost any sport style UTV. We have either mounts or specific mounting brackets underneath that can mount to just about any vehicle out there.
Awesome. So moving down this direction, you were saying earlier that this seat down here on the end is one of your most popular seats, or it's going to be the most popular seat once it really takes hold. So that new seat here is called the GT3, and that's replacing which seat?
That's actually the next evolution of our GT SE, which has been our most popular seat for going on 4 years now, probably. It's the one that most people have bought and have, but we decided it was time to update it, add a few features that our customers were really asking for.
So what are some of those features that we're going to see in the new GT3?
So we updated the styling a little bit, but the main feature is that removable seat cushion. So it now pops out, so all the dirt, rocks, things like that don't sit in the seat. We've always had the mesh drain in the back of the seat, which keeps a lot of fine sand and water and stuff out. But with the removable seat cushion, that really keeps all the biggest chunks out of there. And then the fifth point for that 5-point belt we talked about earlier, there's actually an integrated slot into the cushion now, where before it's just a loop on the front. So a little bit better positioning for the belt and a little bit more comfort for the riders.
Perfect. So as far as seats go, you're looking at style and you're looking at comfort. What else would somebody be looking for an aftermarket seat for?
Really, it's like you said, comfort, but it's also about just fit. You know, that's why we try to get out to the shows a lot. We try to get displays in the shops like Chaparral, and so people can sit and figure out what fits them the best. There's different sides on each seat, so some of them kind of come up around the hip. Other ones hit you more at the kidneys and the legs. Some are just low-sided, so you can slide in and out real easy. So it really just depends on your body style, the kind of riding you do, things like that. So really, it's important to get in the seats, get out to those shops, and check them out for yourself.
Sweet. Now, when it comes to seats, there's a lot that goes into them. It's not just a piece of foam that you're sitting on or an upgrade piece of padding. There's a lot of technology that goes into making one of these off-road racing style seats. We're going to get an opportunity to go back in the back and see inside the seat and learn a little bit more about those. But just really quick, as far as what goes into a seat, what are we looking at?
So most of our UTV seats are what's called a suspension seat. And the idea there is it is a steel tube frame. And then between the steel tubes, back and bottom, you have a vinyl liner that flexes. And so when you're really hitting those hard ruts and you're hitting the witch's eye on the dunes out of nowhere, it gives a little bit. So it doesn't, you're not hitting that solid plastic bottom like you are on the stock seats. It's also bigger and wider, kind of contains you better. But it really is that suspension that gets you that comfort and gets you on, out on the trails longer.
That's perfect. Yeah, limiting fatigue or minimizing the amount of fatigue you have while you're out there is going to allow you to be in that seat longer, happier, and having more fun. Well, before we jump back to the back, we walked past something else I saw that was interesting that I didn't know was made, and that's going to be more of the bench-style seat for the back. It looks like it has spot for 3 people. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's fits on the same brackets that the stock seats do, and it bolts right into the back of the RZR. So these are made specifically for the RZRs, the 1000s turbos. And yeah, it's got position for 3 people. Not really 3 adults, but like 2 adults and a smaller rider in the middle, or 3 smaller riders in the back. And you can actually have 3 sets of harnesses on there as well. So that way everybody's locked in, everybody's safe back there.
Now, tricky question. I know that kids have to be in car seats up to a certain age when you're on the street. What are the rules for off-road?
There's not really defined rules. It's more about the drivers. You're supposed to be 16, I believe it is, for being in a UTV. But we highly recommend any smaller riders go by the same rules that they have on the street for car seats. Have a car seat. I think it's 8 or 80 now. It's been a while since my kids were in them. But go by the same rules. Get a car seat. Get them strapped in there nice and snug, and keep them safe in the back. It's really important. Just go with one of the good market-tested ones you find at all your big box retailers.
Well, that's great to hear. So, yeah, you can actually take your kids out there and get them into the off-road adventures with you, which is great. It's a great family sport. You may have also seen some of the other stuff here on the wall. We've got spare tire carriers. We've got hard doors. We've got switch mounts. We've got all kinds of fun stuff. Really quick, other than the ones I just mentioned, what else do you have to offer?
We have suites of bags and products, storage for all kinds of UTVs, YXE, X3, anything that you might see out there on the dunes or in the desert. We have products for your Jeeps, your trucks, buggies, things like that. Harness bars, tailgates for the YXE. A lot of little products that, again, we get those machines in as quick as possible and just try to R&D whatever we can, whether it's storage or some really convenient hard parts that can make your UTV just all that much more useful.
Sounds amazing. All right, now that we talked about the main products that PRP has to offer, let's step in the back and see how these things are made. So this is where all the magic happens, huh?
Yeah, this is our weld shop. We make all the seat frames here in-house. So we have all the raw tubing and everything here. We cut, bend, and get going to the welders here.
Pretty impressive. So as far as the build process goes, how long does that process take?
The actual build process itself only takes about a week. So from order to finished seat, we have about 7 days of actual hands-on production. What happens is we get a lot of orders, and so that week may be pushed off another week or so. So like say right now, our lead time may be 2 weeks. When it gets real busy, our lead time may be 3 to 4 weeks. But the actual building time of the seat, we refine that down to be about a week of time.
Gotcha. Now, all these seats are built with 3/4-inch tubing. Yep. Now, there's 2 different thicknesses of tube, correct?
Yep. 065 and 095. We use 095 for the areas where it's being connected to, say, the real strong structural areas like the bottom hoop and the arms and down by where the tabs are.
All right, let's take a look at one of these seats getting welded up. All right. Let's take a walk. So now we have a seat being made behind us here. Now, as far as when the seat's produced, how many different steps does a seat go through?
So the first step, it's broken down in different work orders. The first step is our inner frame, which is what you see behind us here. He's working on a frame. It looks like possibly an extra wide, maybe extra tall frame that he's putting together back there. So we weld them all in-house, and just depending on what all the requirements are, they follow that work order. Then there's the inner liner, which is that suspension function. Then there's the foam and the outer cover, and then the cleaning, and we're done.
Fantastic. Now we can step over and see the material being cut and those seats being sewn, correct?
Yep, absolutely. It's pretty fun to watch.
All right, let's do it. Well, watching those frames get made was pretty interesting. Yeah. So what's the next step in the process here?
So the next part are inner liner. This is what creates the suspension function of the suspension seat. So this is a vinyl coated nylon. It's puncture resistant and it's a ripstop. Oh, wow. So we actually test every time we get samples, maybe a new supplier or they're changing things up. We cut it and then we all kind of pull on it and pull against it and see if it's going to rip at all. And if it does, we don't use it. So it's all ripstop, real solid stuff. This is a solid one here, and we also make it out of a mesh for debris and water and stuff like that to drain through.
Interesting. So it looks like these Edges are sewn, so this actually goes around each of the tubing that for the sides and the back and the top.
So it goes around the tubing on the bottom and the back, and then again, that's what creates that suspension name to it, and it just gives that a little bit of flex. So when you're hitting those hard obstacles or hitting a witch's eye or something, it gives that little flex. All the shock doesn't go through your body.
That's pretty amazing. So do we have a sample of this already installed on a frame that we can take a look at?
Yeah, you can check it out. We have a bunch
All right,
of frames over here.
let's do it. All right, so stepping over this direction, looks like we're looking at one of those suspension components already installed on a seat.
Yeah, so here we have our frames. This is one of our frames back from powder coat. So we powder coat all of our frames to make sure they're corrosion and rust resistant. And then, yeah, one of the liners then gets laced on here. So these guys use a 700-pound paracord here, lace it all up, and make sure it's nice and tight. So you get that real stiff feel there. And it's good. It doesn't rebound. A lot of people compare it to like a trampoline, but it doesn't rebound like a trampoline. It just has that give. And it's a puncture, it's rip resistant, and it should hold up sometimes longer than the outside of the seat does.
That's incredible. That's neat. So the next process after this is putting foam on it, correct?
Yep. We have two different densities of foam that we'll put up on this, glue it on, and then we put the covers on top of that.
Sweet. Let's take a look. So stepping over this way, I can see that some spray glue is being sprayed on, and this guy is manually attaching each of the foam pieces. That's pretty impressive.
Yep. We a lot of our seats come as kitted foam pieces, so they're already pre-cut, ready to go. All these guys have to do is use this water-based spray-on glue, and then just attach all the different strips and pieces so it sticks to the inner liner, doesn't move around. You're not going to get that shifting and the foam bunching up and moving around on the seat.
So this leads me to another question. How many hands touch each of these seats that come out of the factory?
I'd say 6 or 7 for each seat as the seat goes through the process, from welding to foaming and all that kind of stuff.
It's pretty impressive. 6 or 7 people in 6 or 7 days as far as the process goes. It's pretty impressive. Now moving over here, we see a second color of foam being put on. I guess this is a higher density?
Yeah, so we use 2 different kinds of densities here. We have a little bit harder foam for the outside to help keep the cover a little nice and taut, and then the inner foam is for the comfort and for the softness of the cushioning as you're riding.
Now, does the plastic that's going on now stay on there once the seat's in production?
Yeah, it actually helps them get the cover on, so it creates a little bit of glide. So when they're putting the cover on, it slides on a little bit easier.
Interesting. Now, when speaking about the covers, there's a really neat automated cutting process that we saw coming in. That's probably where we're headed to next, no?
Yeah, absolutely. It's our digital cutter. All of our patterns for the covers are digitized and get nested automatically, and then they get cut on our big machines over there.
All right, so it looks like we're stepping over to where these seats are all sewn up now. Now, she's working on a really pretty gray suede seat here. What would this seat go to?
This looks like an Alpha seat. So that's our composite seat we built specifically for off-road. The shell is our own custom style shell and everything. And yeah, this cover looks like it's for an Alpha seat. It's got our cool American flag embroidery on it too. So
over at this process, a single person does the entire seat. Now, if it is a pair of seats, they do both of those seats. What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, there's so many options that we have, so much customization you can do that to hand it off between people like a traditional assembly line could get confusing, and you have, say, someone has a gray thread and she's using red and it gets mixed up. So it's just, we found that it's better to have them focus on the one pair that they're working on. They can keep an eye on all the customization options, what kind of thread they use, what kind of pattern they have, all that kind of stuff, and make sure that they get everything just right. And it actually works out quicker that way because we're not changing threads, we're not changing different tools as they work on a seat. They have everything they need in the one bin, they're ready to go.
So a typical seat sew process takes about how long?
Depends on the seat, really. It could be anywhere from like the real simple classic style seats, I believe, are 30 to 45 minutes, and then then some of the other ones are an hour and 15 minutes, something like that. So it just depends on the style of seat, how complex the cover is. A lot of our UTV seats have a little more stylized covers, so they take a little bit longer.
That's cool. All right, so now we've seen how the seats have been cut as far as the material goes. We've seen how they've been sewn up, and now we're watching the installation of a cover onto a completed frame.
Yep, this is the stage we call mounting. And so these guys will pull the cover over the foamed seat. They're really good at doing their job here and getting these seats on here. There's a very specific way every one mounts. There's different pulls, there's different hog ring locations, things like that, as you can see Alfonso doing here. It's a lot of hard work, and they do a really good job.
All right, so now that we've seen how the seats have been made, looks like we're stepping over here to cleaning and quality control. Now, what exactly happens over here?
So as you can see, she's wiped down the seat now. She's getting off chalk marks from when it was on the cutter. Sometimes it marks different areas or something like that, or they mark areas to improve on. And she'll make sure it's on there nice and tight. She'll double check the colors that were ordered, make sure that all looks correct. trim off all little flyaway threads and things like that. But just overall, make sure it's ready to go and ready for the customer to see it. It's really one of our most important steps. It's the last line of defense out the door. From here, it gets bagged and then either put in a box or picked up by the customer. So either way, the next person to see it should be actual customer. We want it to look good and we want it to look well put together.
So here we're looking at the very last step. This seat is being bagged up and it will be tagged for either pickup or for shipment. Jace, this has been a very eye-opening look at how PRP seats are made. We really appreciate you inviting us down here to take a look.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. It's great to show people around. It's always kind of fun to get out here myself and look at everything. So it's a lot of fun.
The thing that really impressed me was the number of hands that actually touch each of these seats. So when you might take a look at the price point of one of these seats, anywhere between $350 and $1,000, and you might wonder what goes into that. Well, now you know exactly what goes into a PRP seat. No expenses spared and no amount of attention to detail is spared either. These seats are looked at by every single person that touches them, all the way down to this final step here that you're seeing being done in front of us. I'm Carl Bryant from Chaparral Motorsports. This is Jason from PRP Seats. Thank you for joining us on this About PRP and how PRP seats are made. Until next time, take care and ride safe out there.